Bagels, they look harmless, right? Golden brown, soft on the inside, slightly crisp on the outside, and the perfect companion to your morning coffee. Whether it's the plain classic, sesame, or everything bagel, it's one of those foods that feels safe. It's not fried, it's not candy, and it's not fast food, so how bad could it really be? Well, here's the shocking truth. Most store-bought bagels are a nutritional trap disguised as a wholesome breakfast. The comforting aroma might remind you of your favorite bakery, but the ingredients list often reads more like a science experiment than food. We're talking bleached white flour, high fructose corn syrup, sodium levels that rival potato chips, and preservatives that keep those bagels fresh for weeks, even months on the shelf. A single bagel from certain brands can pack over 400 calories, 50 grams of refined carbs, and more than 500 milligrams of sodium. And that's before you even add the cream cheese or butter. Eat one of these every morning and you're setting yourself up for energy crashes, blood sugar spikes, and an expanding waistline, not exactly the breakfast of champions. Even the so-called healthy or whole grain versions are often misleading. Many of them add molasses, sugar, or caramel coloring just to give the illusion of whole grains while still being mostly refined white flour. And then there are the protein bagels. Sounds impressive, right? But in most cases, that extra protein comes from isolates and additives, not from quality, nutrient-dense ingredients. The truth is, not all bagels are bad, but the ones that dominate supermarket shelves are built for mass production, not for your health. So today, we're exposing the 8 bagel brands you should absolutely avoid if you care about your heart, your blood sugar, and your long-term energy levels. And don't worry after that, we'll highlight a few brands that actually get it right. Ones that use real ingredients, balanced nutrition, and still deliver that perfect chewy bite you crave in the morning. Because the goal isn't to give up bagels, it's to stop letting bad ones weigh you down. 1. Thomas's Bagels. When you think of bagels, chances are, Thomas's is one of the first names that comes to mind. Their bright orange packaging has been a breakfast staple for decades, stocked in nearly every grocery store and toaster across America. But behind that familiar comfort lies a truth that's far less appetizing. Thomas's bagels might look simple, but they're one of the worst offenders when it comes to overly processed, additive-filled breakfast foods. Let's start with the ingredients. A closer look at the label reveals a laundry list of refined flours, added sugars, dough conditioners, and preservatives like calcium propionate and monoglycerides, ingredients that help extend shelf life but have no business in your body. And despite what the marketing suggests, these bagels are anything but balanced. One plain Thomas's bagel packs around 270 to 300 calories, 52 grams of refined carbs, and over 500 milligrams of sodium. That's almost 1/4 of your daily sodium intake. Before you even add the cream cheese, the whole wheat and multi-grain versions aren't much better. They're often made with enriched white flour blended with just enough whole grains to legally use the label. It's a clever marketing trick, one that gives consumers a false sense of health. Even worse, these bagels often contain high fructose corn syrup, something you'd never expect to find in a wholesome breakfast bread. And here's where it gets more concerning. Thomas's is owned by Bimbo Bakeries USA, a massive food conglomerate, also behind brands like Entenmann's, Sara Lee, and Arnold. These companies are notorious for prioritizing long shelf life and mass production over nutrition or ingredient quality. The result? A bagel that's soft, fluffy, and perfectly uniform, but completely stripped of natural nutrients. In 2021, consumer watchdogs even flagged Thomas and similar brands for excess sodium and misleading whole grain claims, warning that regular consumption could contribute to high blood pressure and increased cardiovascular risk. So yes, they're convenient. They toast up nicely, they smell amazing. But if you're serious about clean eating or even basic health, Thomas's bagels belong nowhere near your morning routine. Sometimes tradition needs to be broken, especially when it's built on sugar, sodium, and empty carbs. 2. Lender's Bagels. For many people, Lender's Bagels are the definition of convenience, those brightly colored plastic bags sitting in the freezer section, promising an authentic New York taste right from your toaster. But don't let the nostalgia or the since 1927 label fool you. The Lender's brand has drifted far from its homemade roots, becoming one of the most ultra-processed bagel options on the market today. The original Lender family built its reputation on fresh, hand-rolled bagels. But when the company was acquired by Kraft Foods, everything changed. What used to be a small-batch bakery product transformed into a mass-produced, frozen commodity designed for long shelf life, and that means one thing: preservatives galore. A single glance at the ingredients list tells you everything you need to know. You'll find bleached enriched flour, high fructose corn syrup, monoglycerides, calcium propionate, and sodium stearoyl lactylate, all to keep those bagels soft, uniform, and freezer-friendly for months. Then there's the nutritional breakdown, and it's far from flattering. One Lender's plain bagel can pack around 270 calories, 53 grams of refined carbs, and roughly 500 to 600 milligrams of sodium. And if you grab a flavored version, like blueberry or cinnamon swirl, expect an added 10 to 12 grams of sugar on top of that. Basically, you're eating the equivalent of a frosted donut disguised as breakfast bread. Here's where it gets more troubling. Frozen bagels like Lenders are pre-baked and flash frozen, which destroys much of the texture and nutritional value of the original dough. What's left is a dense, chewy product that's loaded with additives to mimic freshness. Consumers have even complained that after toasting, the bagels taste rubbery or chemical-like, which shouldn't surprise anyone. You're reheating a food product designed more for preservation than flavor. In 2019, nutrition experts criticized brands like Lenders for marketing themselves as wholesome family breakfasts, when in reality they're closer to processed junk food. The sodium and sugar levels alone make them a poor choice for heart health and blood sugar control. Simply put, Lenders bagels are convenient. But that convenience comes with a cost. If you're serious about your health, this freezer-friendly favorite is one bagel brand you should absolutely skip. 3. Sara Lee bagels. When you hear the name Sara Lee, you probably think of baked comfort soft breads, moist cakes, and that nostalgic slogan, "Nobody doesn't like Sara Lee." But when it comes to their bagels, that slogan couldn't be further from the truth. Because once you peel back the label and look past the marketing, Sara Lee bagels are one of the most misleading, wholesome breakfast choices sitting on supermarket shelves. Let's start with what's inside. Sara Lee's bagels are made primarily with refined, enriched wheat flour, meaning all the natural fiber and nutrients have been stripped away, leaving behind little more than empty carbs. Each bagel packs a staggering 280 to 320 calories, with 55 grams of carbs and over 500 milligrams of sodium, nearly a quarter of what you should have in an entire day. And while their packaging often highlights phrases like "made with whole grains" or "a good source of energy," those claims are little more than clever marketing. Most of that whole grain comes from trace amounts added just to meet labeling requirements, not enough to offer any real nutritional value. In some varieties, you'll even find sugar, soybean oil, dough conditioners, and preservatives like calcium propionate, all working together to extend shelf life and create that soft, fluffy texture people love. Here's where the controversy begins. Sara Lee's parent company, Bimbo Bakeries USA, has faced multiple consumer lawsuits over misleading whole grain and no artificial preservatives claims across its brands. Independent food watchdogs have also called out Sara Lee for using ambiguous ingredient labeling and high sodium formulas in their bread and bagel lines. So while the bagels may look harmless sitting in the bread aisle, they're essentially processed carb bombs in disguise. And let's not ignore the sugar trap. Their cinnamon raisin and blueberry flavors contain up to 11 grams of sugar per bagel, which might not sound like much until you realize that's about the same as a chocolate chip cookie. Combine that with refined flour and your healthy breakfast quickly turns into a mid-morning energy crash waiting to happen. Sara Lee bagels might win on nostalgia, but nutritionally they lose big time. If you're watching your blood sugar, blood pressure, or waistline, you'll want to steer clear of this misleading breakfast classic. 4. Einstein Brothers bagels. Einstein Brothers bagels. The name alone sounds intelligent, wholesome, and trustworthy. With their cozy cafes, warm bagel sandwiches, and friendly morning coffee vibe, they've become one of America's favorite breakfast stops. But despite the clever branding and freshly baked image, Einstein Brothers bagels are far from a smart choice for your health. In fact, they're one of the most nutritionally deceptive bagel brands out there. Let's start with the basics. One Einstein Brothers bagel can pack a jaw-dropping 300 to 400 calories, 60 to 70 grams of refined carbs, and upwards of 600 milligrams of sodium. That's before the cream cheese, egg, or bacon they usually pile on top. In reality, you could hit 800 to 1,000 calories in one sitting, the equivalent of a fast food meal disguised as breakfast. The real issue lies in the ingredients. Despite marketing themselves as freshly made, Einstein Brothers uses highly processed enriched wheat flour, dough conditioners, sweeteners, preservatives, and in many cases added sugars to keep their bagels soft and flavorful. The whole wheat and multigrain versions might sound healthier, but they often contain more molasses and brown sugar than actual whole grains. It's another textbook case of health washing selling junk food dressed in healthy buzzwords. And here's the controversy most people don't know about. In 2020, Einstein Brothers faced public backlash after nutrition watchdogs revealed that many of their menu bagels contained more sodium than a McDonald's Big Mac. The findings shocked customers who had long assumed the cafe chain was a better breakfast option. Health experts warned that regular consumption could easily push people past the recommended daily sodium intake, raising blood pressure and heart disease risk over time. Even their smart choices and egg white sandwiches don't fare much better. The bagels themselves are still the same refined carb base, meaning you're just wrapping a supposedly light meal around a heavy foundation. Einstein Brothers is a classic example of how clever branding and cafe ambiance can mask poor nutritional quality. Sure, they smell great, and the convenience is unbeatable, but if you're eating one every morning, your body is paying a price you can't see. 5. Dave's Killer Bread Bagels. At first glance, Dave's Killer Bread Bagels look like the ultimate health win. The packaging screams organic, whole grains, and non-GMO. The story behind the brand, a man who rebuilt his life through baking, gives it a powerful emotional appeal. For health-conscious shoppers, it feels like the one bagel brand they can trust completely. But here's where things get interesting. While Dave's Killer Bread does some things right, their bagels aren't nearly as killer for your health as the marketing suggests. Let's break it down. Each Dave's Killer Bread bagel clocks in at around 260 to 310 calories, 50 to 55 grams of carbohydrates, and 400 to 500 milligrams of sodium. The Epic Everything and Cinnamon Raisin Remix varieties sound flavorful, and they are, but that flavor often comes from added sugar and fruit concentrates. In fact, some of their bagels contain up to 11 grams of sugar per serving, making them one of the highest sugar healthy bagel brands on the shelf. Now, to be fair, Dave's uses organic ingredients and real whole grains, which is definitely better than the refined flours used by brands like Thomas's or Lender's. However, the problem lies in portion size and marketing. The bagels are large and dense, meaning that even though they're nutrient-rich, they still spike your blood sugar and pack a hefty calorie punch. It's like calling a clean cheat meal healthy, just because it's made with organic sugar technically better, but still a sugar bomb. Here's the controversy. In 2021, several nutritionists criticized Dave's Killer Bread for what they called health halo marketing. Consumers were led to believe the bagels were guilt-free because of the branding, when in reality the sugar and calorie counts were comparable to less natural brands. One dietitian even said, if your breakfast bagel has 11 grams of sugar, it's not doing your metabolism any favors, organic or not. So yes, Dave's bagels are a step above the worst offenders, but they're still far from perfect. If you're eating them daily thinking they're clean fuel, you might be surprised by how much sugar and starch you're taking in before 9 a.m. 6. Pepperidge Farm Bagels. When you hear Pepperidge Farm, you probably think of cozy nostalgia, golden brown cookies, warm bread, and that old-fashioned charm that screams baked with love. The packaging feels trustworthy, like something your grandmother would approve of. But here's the truth. Pepperidge Farm bagels might be one of the sneakiest offenders in the bread aisle because behind that wholesome image lies a mix of refined flour, added sugars, preservatives, and sodium levels that can quietly sabotage your health goals. Let's start with the ingredients. The first one listed: enriched bleached wheat flour, a polite way of saying stripped of nutrients. While it's fortified with synthetic vitamins, the natural fiber and minerals found in whole grains are long gone. What's left is a highly processed base that digests quickly, causing your blood sugar to spike the exact opposite of what you want from a breakfast staple. A single plain Pepperidge Farm bagel packs 270 calories, 55 grams of carbs, and over 450 milligrams of sodium, and that's before you add butter or cream cheese. Their blueberry and cinnamon swirl flavors may sound innocent, but they can contain up to 12 grams of sugar per bagel, thanks to sweeteners like high fructose corn syrup and molasses. In short, you're eating something closer to dessert than breakfast. Then there's the preservative problem. To keep their bagels soft and shelf-stable for weeks, Pepperidge Farm uses additives like calcium propionate and monoglycerides, chemicals that extend shelf life but offer zero nutritional value. Studies have shown that these additives, while approved for consumption, can sometimes cause digestive discomfort or inflammation in sensitive individuals. What's worse, these bagels can create a cycle of energy spikes and crashes. You feel full for an hour or two, then crash, leading to mid-morning hunger or cravings for more sugar and caffeine. It's the kind of quiet sabotage that builds up over time and makes you wonder why you're always tired or struggling to lose weight, even when you're eating light. So, while Pepperidge Farm might look like a safe bet thanks to its classic reputation, the reality is far less wholesome. Between the refined flour, hidden sugars, and chemical preservatives, it's one bagel brand best left behind on the shelf. 7. Great Value Bagels, Walmart brand. When you think great value, you think budget-friendly, not necessarily great nutrition. Walmart's in-house brand dominates shelves with its promise of affordability, but when it comes to their bagels, the cost you save at checkout might come back to bite you in your long-term health. Great Value Bagels are a perfect example of how ultra-processed foods sneak their way into our daily routines. They look simple enough: soft, fluffy, golden brown, but behind that grocery store glow hides a cocktail of low-quality ingredients. Each bagel is made from enriched bleached flour, high fructose corn syrup, vegetable oils, calcium propionate, and a mix of synthetic dough enhancers that help it stay fresh for weeks on end. And here's the kicker. The sodium content clocks in at over 450 milligrams per bagel, with nearly 11 grams of sugar in some varieties like cinnamon swirl. That's dangerously close to the sugar in a glazed donut. And you're eating it first thing in the morning thinking it's a simple breakfast. But it's not just the numbers that make this concerning, it's the quality of ingredients. These bagels rely on cheap industrial oils like soybean and canola oil, which are heavily refined and stripped of nutrients. They're added to improve texture and extend shelf life, but in return, they flood your body with omega-6 fatty acids, which have been linked to chronic inflammation when overconsumed. Even more alarming, Walmart's Great Value line has faced consumer complaints in the past for mold growth and early spoilage, despite the long list of preservatives supposedly keeping it fresh. That alone raises eyebrows about the true stability and cleanliness of production. In the end, Great Value bagels might be easy on the wallet, but they're hard on your health. They're loaded with sugar, refined carbs, and artificial stabilizers offering quick energy and zero lasting nutrition. If you're eating these thinking you're saving money, remember, the real cost comes later, in energy crashes, digestive strain, and potentially higher cholesterol. Sometimes paying a little more for better quality ingredients is the smarter deal. 8. Panera Bread bagels. Now, this one might sting a little because Panera Bread is often seen as the healthy cafe option. But their bagels, not so wholesome. Behind that cozy bakery aesthetic and warm coffee house vibe, Panera's bagels are some of the most calorie-dense, sugar-loaded options on the market, and that's why they absolutely belong on this list. Take the fan-favorite Cinnamon Crunch Bagel. It sounds harmless, even comforting, right? Until you realize it packs a jaw-dropping 420 calories, 31 grams of sugar, and nearly 400 milligrams of sodium. That's more sugar than a chocolate bar, and more sodium than a serving of fries, and that's before you even add cream cheese. Even their plain or whole grain versions aren't innocent. Each one is made with enriched white flour, cane sugar, and refined oils, with barely 2 grams of fiber per serving. So despite the branding, you're basically eating a sweetened bread roll that spikes your blood sugar and leaves you hungrier a few hours later. Panera has built its brand around transparency, but there's a big difference between clean ingredients and healthy ingredients. Sure, they might avoid artificial dyes and trans fats, but they still pack their bagels with high-calorie sweeteners and over-processed grains, a combination that tricks you into thinking you're making a smarter choice when you're really not. And here's something most people don't realize in 2021. Panera faced criticism after customers began reporting that certain bagels were molding within days of purchase, raising questions about storage and ingredient stability. The issue wasn't just about spoilage, it showed how mass production, even in fresh bakeries, can lead to inconsistencies in food safety and quality. In short, Panera's bagels are a perfect example of health washing when brands use wholesome imagery to sell ultra-processed food. They may smell like they came from a neighborhood bakery, but nutritionally, they're closer to dessert than breakfast. If you're stopping at Panera for your morning pick-me-up, skip the bagel. Your body and your blood sugar will thank you later. Alright, we've seen the worst of the worst bagels that are loaded with preservatives, sugar, and cheap refined flour. But don't lose hope just yet. Not every bagel brand is out to sabotage your health. There are still a few that stick to simple, clean, and wholesome ingredients that actually nourish your body instead of draining it. So let's switch gears and talk about the brands that are doing it right. These are the bagels that not only taste great, but also keep your energy levels steady and your conscience clear. Healthy alternative number 1, Ezekiel 49, Sprouted Grain Bagels. Now that we've gone through the worst offenders, let's talk about one of the best Ezekiel 49, Sprouted Grain Bagels by Food for Life. These aren't your average bagels. In fact, they're closer to a nutritional powerhouse than a processed carb bomb. Unlike typical bagels made from bleached, enriched flour, Ezekiel bagels use a base of sprouted whole grains including wheat, barley, spelt, millet, lentils, and soybeans. That sprouting process is key. It helps unlock nutrients, making vitamins like B and E more bioavailable and easier for your body to absorb. It also improves digestion, lowers the glycemic impact, and naturally increases protein content, all without adding sugar or artificial ingredients. Each bagel contains about 10 grams of protein, 6 grams of fiber, and 0 added sugars. That balance of protein and fiber keeps you full longer and stabilizes blood sugar. No more morning crashes or midday hunger spikes. Even better, the carb-to-protein ratio in Ezekiel bagels makes them a solid option for athletes, busy professionals, or anyone trying to transition away from ultra-processed breads. But what really makes Ezekiel 49 stand out is its clean ingredient list. No preservatives, no sweeteners, no dough conditioners. Every component is something your grandmother would recognize. The company even refrigerates or freezes their products instead of using chemicals to extend shelf life, a sign of genuine commitment to food quality. Taste-wise, these bagels are hearty and slightly nutty, offering a satisfying chew that feels closer to a real old-fashioned bagel than the soft, spongy ones from the supermarket. Toast them lightly, add some avocado or almond butter, and you've got a balanced, nutrient-rich meal that fuels you for hours. In short, Ezekiel bagels prove you don't need sugar and preservatives to make bread taste good. You just need real grains, real nutrition, and a recipe that respects the body as much as the flavor. Healthy alternative number 2, O'Dough's gluten-free bagels. Next up, a brand that's perfect for anyone with gluten sensitivities or just trying to eat lighter. O'Dough's gluten-free bagels. These bagels might be gluten-free, but they're not flavor-free, and that's what makes them such a standout. Odo's uses a blend of whole grains like flaxseed, chia, and brown rice flour, providing a boost of omega-3 fatty acids, plant-based protein, and fiber. Instead of relying on sugar and preservatives, they focus on real, nutrient-dense ingredients that make you feel full without the bloat or sugar rush. Each bagel has about 240 calories, 4 grams of fiber, and 5 grams of protein, with minimal sodium and no artificial additives. That's a huge improvement over traditional bagels, which can pack 12 grams of sugar and nearly double the sodium. And since these bagels are made from naturally gluten-free grains, they're much easier on digestion, especially for people dealing with inflammation, fatigue, or gut issues linked to wheat. What sets Odo's apart is their attention to texture and taste. Most gluten-free bagels tend to be dry or crumbly, but these manage to stay soft and slightly chewy, the perfect balance. Toast one, add a spread of natural peanut butter or some smashed avocado, and you'll forget you're eating a gluten-free product at all. Beyond taste and texture, Odo's also gets points for transparency. The brand focuses on clean labeling, meaning no mystery chemicals or vague natural flavorings. You know exactly what you're putting into your body, and that kind of honesty is rare in today's food industry. In short, Odo's gluten-free bagels are for anyone who wants a clean, nourishing start to their day without sacrificing flavor. They're proof that gluten-free doesn't have to mean boring, it can actually mean better. So there you have it, the shocking truth behind some of the most popular bagel brands lining our grocery shelves. What looks like a simple breakfast or a harmless snack is, in many cases, just a sugar-laced, sodium-packed, ultra-processed circle of chemicals. For years, we've been told that bagels are part of a balanced breakfast. But after taking a closer look, it's clear that not all bagels are created equal. Some of these brands were even called out for false whole grain labeling or using preservatives that have been banned in other countries. That's not breakfast, that's a health trap disguised as a comfort food. But the good news, you're not powerless. Once you start reading labels, understanding ingredients, and making smarter swaps, you'll realize that eating better doesn't mean giving up the foods you love. It just means being a little more intentional. Bagels like Dave's, Killer Bread, or Ezekiel 4:9 show that you can enjoy your morning toast or sandwich and still fuel your body with real wholesome ingredients. It's not about cutting bagels out, it's about choosing the right ones. And remember, the food industry loves to bank on our habits. Every time you buy one of those over-processed, artificially enhanced bagels, you're voting for more of the same. But when you choose cleaner, more natural options, you're sending a different message, one that says, we deserve better. If this video opened your eyes or made you take a second look at what's sitting in your pantry, don't just stop here, because we're only scratching the surface of what's really going on in our food industry. So before you go, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join us on this journey toward uncovering the hidden truths behind the foods we eat every day. Next time, we'll be diving into another household favorite that might not be as innocent as it looks. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Because the truth isn't just in the fine print on the back of the package, it's in what they don't want you to know. Stay smart, stay curious, and as always, choose better. Live better.